Meet Henry Sefti. When I think of the power of one, or as I'm calling tonight's talk, the power of ones, I think of Henry. Henry is the principal of the Atid Technological School in Ofakim, a school for extremely at-risk youth. The government of Israel has done a wonderful job investing in these kids. The lowest teacher-to-student ratio in the country, a nice facility, breakfast for the kids each day. But there's one problem in this school. And the problem is that school ends at 1:30 in the afternoon. And for those of us, I think all of us, who have been teenagers or who have teenagers, we know that between 1:30 p.m. and the time a teenager goes to sleep, a lot can happen. So Henry came up with this idea. He said, these kids are at risk. I need to keep them in school. So he went around Ofakim and he found people with expertise in math, in computers, in sports, and he convinced all of them, free of charge, to come and create a free after-school club for kids every day till 5 p.m., thereby keeping these kids in school. But Henry had one problem. To keep these kids in the school, he needed to give them food, a hot lunch. And that's where the power of this one, Henry, met the power of one of Leket, Israel. And together today, we have an operation fueled by excess food from the Israeli army, where hundreds of meals are delivered every day to this school, keeping these kids in late, out of trouble, and hopefully succeeding in their lives. That's me. I'll say about 10 years ago. And the question really for tonight is, what takes a typical, some would say boring, modern Orthodox Oleh to Israel with a shockingly brief legal and high-tech career to leave what he knows, drop everything, and dedicate his life to helping Jews, Muslims, and Christians in the state of Israel? This was my aliyah car. And for those who know Israel, your aliyah car is the one that you pay very low taxes on. You don't mess with the aliyah car. You treat it with kid gloves. My wife made us give away this car after numerous mishaps after the founding of Leket Israel. I'm sure you all remember that Seinfeld episode where no matter what he does, he cannot get the smell out of the car. That was our aliyah car. And that was the original fleet of Lekets. Here's a partial picture of what our fleet looks like today. Now, what's the inspiration for something like this? Now, I think for all Jews, the easiest place to go is, of course, back to our holy book, the Bible. And for those of us who know the word leket, leket means gleaning. And as we learned in the Psukim, in Leviticus, when you reap your land's harvest, do not completely harvest the ends of your fields. All the above must be left for the poor and the stranger. And in Deuteronomy, when you reap your grain harvest and forget a sheaf in the field, you must not go back to get it. It must be left for the foreigner, orphan, and widow. Now, these laws only exist at the time that the temple exists in Jerusalem, and that's been a couple thousand years. So the opportunity to take something from our history, from our halakha, from our Jewish law, which really is dormant today, the opportunity to bring that back to the modern world, to use modern technology, to impact modern food culture, food economics, food purchasing, to me, was something that I could not pass up. And as we remember from the book of Ruth and Naomi picking in the fields, and we know how that turned out. Ruth met her husband Boaz, and the ultimate end to that was the birth of King David. Now, as an Oleh, I had certain expectations about Israel, Zionist expectations. The expectation of 1.7 million Israelis living in poverty, while at the same time were wasting a minimum of 64 million cooked meals and 700,000 tons of fruits and vegetables was not part of how I expected the land of milk and honey, or startup nation as it's known, a successful, wealthy Western superpower to be. And so then I remembered another law from our Bible, Bal Tashrit, not wasting. And I said to myself, what an opportunity to bring back something dormant from our past, something we seem to have forgotten today, and put those two together. And that's why Leket was created, to make a FedEx for food rescue. This is what food waste looks like. And the question is, why? Why is this going on day in, day out? So let me just give you a couple of examples in the limited time we have left. Anyone recognize this woman? In the industry, she is known as Bridezilla. Everyone lives in fear of Bridezilla. Her bridesmaid, probably her future husbands. But most importantly, in my case, that's not a picture of my wife. My in-laws are here and all her brothers. Caterers live in fear of Bridezilla. And the fear they have is being the first wedding in the history of the world where they've run out of food. And because of that, they produce 25% more than they ever need. And the same thing happens in the catering world and the hotel world and corporate cafeterias. In fact, in Israel this year, there'll be 50,000 weddings, and at those weddings, more than 5 million meals will be wasted. Anyone recognize these very interesting, funky fruits and vegetables? In our parlance, they call it ugly fruits and vegetables. Now, how many of you have had the opportunity to eat these perfectly healthy, nutritious fruits and vegetables? The answer is not many of you. And the reason is because these rarely make it to market. There's a bit of movement today. You're starting to see some supermarkets putting these for sale at a discount price, and they sell out right away. But in general, this stuff never, ever makes it to market. And that's one of the things that Leket exists to take advantage of. But as I said before, Leket is not about the power of one, it's the power of ones. That's Isaac Nurak. Isaac Nurak was the first farmer to ever call me, an older South African immigrant to Israel. He said, I've got hundreds of tons of persimmons on the ground. Once they hit the ground, I don't send them to market. I've heard you've done some great work corralling volunteers at night. Can you help? We were lucky. It was the week of Hanukkah, 2005. It was a vacation time. We put the call out. 500 people showed up that week. And from there, our largest project was born. Thousands and thousands of farmers every year who make the decision to work with Leket rather than letting their fruits and vegetables go to waste. Caterers, waiters, restaurateurs, overpaid, underpaid, overworked, tired, but they'll do everything within their power to make sure that that excess food ends up with those who need it. That's the power of ones. Our NGO partners, those amazing nonprofits dealing with the most difficult cases in life, Holocaust survivors, battered women, youth at risk, families suffering, burdened with the difficulties of daily life. These people, almost always at no pay, who do whatever they can to make sure to feed the poor. That's the power of ones. And last but not least, our volunteers. One after one after one, tens of thousands every year, over 250,000 since our inception 13 years ago. And here are the results. They speak for themselves. I'll give you a moment to read them. 40 million pounds of gleaned fruits and vegetables, 3 million hot meals, 2 million tons of manufactured food, 20 vehicles, 200 NGO partners, 60,000 volunteers, and the most important number of all, feeding 200,000 needy Israelis every week. Now, you remember how I started that school in Ofakim. So this is Kati. And Kati, as you can see, is already succeeding. She's starting her duties in the Israeli army. And Kati said to me, when the food that Leket Israel was delivered to my school, I knew that in a difficult life, someone cared about me. And as we know from our history, from our tradition, what the power of one really is, and who says it best, better than Mishnaic tractate of Sanhedrin, whoever saves a single life in Israel is considered to have saved the whole world. Thank you for your time.